The Black Widow of the SEALs. She spent years being called a disappointment, but one elite soldier knew exactly who she really was, and his trembling hands told the whole truth. The dining room smelled like roasted lamb and old disappointment. Lucy Carter stood near the window, watching the evening light fade over the manicured lawn her father obsessed over more than he ever obsessed over her. She smoothed the front of her civilian dress, a habit, really, the same way a soldier smooths their uniform before walking into enemy territory. Old instincts never truly die. Her father, General Harold Carter, retired, stood at the head of the long oak table, broad-shouldered and silver-haired, commanding the room the way he always had, like it was a battlefield and everyone in it was a subordinate. He was laughing loudly at something the man beside him had said, clapping him on the back with the kind of proud enthusiasm he had never once shown Lucy in 32 years of her life. "Everyone, I want you to meet Commander Daniel Reeves," her father announced, raising his glass. "Elite operator, 12 years with SEAL Team 6, 3 classified operations, 2 presidential commendations. This is what excellence looks like." The room applauded. Lucy raised her glass politely and looked away. Then her father turned to her. His expression shifted, not dramatically, not cruelly enough that anyone else would notice. But Lucy noticed. She had been reading that face since she was 4 years old. The slight tightening of the jaw, the flicker of something cold behind his eyes. "And this," he said, gesturing toward her the way someone gestures toward a piece of furniture they regret purchasing, "is my daughter, Lucy. She's been finding herself." He paused, letting the words land with surgical precision. "All she's done, honestly, is disappoint me." Quiet laughter from the room, an awkward smile from her aunt, her mother staring down at her plate. Lucy said nothing. She had stopped defending herself to rooms like this years ago. But then Commander Daniel Reeves turned to look at her. And everything stopped. She watched it happen in slow motion, the way his confident smile dissolved, the way the color drained from his face as if someone had pulled a plug somewhere deep inside him. His jaw tightened. His glass lowered. His eyes, the dark, calculating eyes of a man trained to show nothing, widened with something she hadn't seen in a very long time. Raw fear. His hand trembled, actually trembled. The ice in his glass rattled softly, and the woman beside him glanced at him with a confused frown. Commander Daniel Reeves, 12 years with SEAL Team 6, 2 presidential commendations, a man who had walked into the most dangerous places on Earth without blinking, was trembling in her father's dining room. He leaned forward slowly, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, rough and fractured. Are you the Black Widow of the SEALs?" The room didn't hear it, but Lucy did. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she set her glass down on the windowsill with a quiet, deliberate click. "Sit down, Commander," she said softly, "before your legs give out." Her name in the field had never been Lucy Carter. For 6 years, she had been Ghost Actual, call sign, Widow, a covert intelligence operative embedded within Joint Special Operations Command, running alongside SEAL teams in theaters so classified that even most generals didn't have clearance to know she existed. She had never worn a uniform to a ceremony. She had never collected a public commendation. She had slipped into hostile cities under foreign names, extracted assets from positions that the military officially declared impossible, and walked away from 3 operations that killed every other person involved. She had not walked away unscathed. The scar running beneath her left collarbone, always hidden beneath civilian clothes, was a permanent reminder of Mosul. The slight stiffness in her right hand on cold mornings was a souvenir from a rooftop in Karachi. And the dreams, the ones she never spoke about, those were gifts from a mountainside in Syria where she had spent 11 days alone, hunted, with nothing but her training and a will to survive that even she couldn't fully explain. She had resigned 14 months ago, quietly. No ceremony, no farewell. She had simply stopped existing in the way she had existed, and she had come home to a father who assumed she had spent the last 6 years drifting. He had never asked. She had never told him. That was the agreement she had made with herself, the one act of protection she still extended to him, though he had never earned it. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed, and the world Lucy had lived in was not a world she wanted dragged into her father's dinner parties. But Commander Daniel Reeves had opened the door himself. She found him on the back porch 20 minutes later, standing in the dark with a glass he hadn't touched, staring out at the garden like a man trying to locate his own reflection in still water. "Operation Iron Shroud," he said without turning around. "Morocco 2019. Lucy leaned against the doorframe and crossed her arms. "You were extraction team. We were told the intelligence operative inside the compound was KIA. He turned then, and even in the dim porch light she could see the disbelief still carved across his face. "We recovered 2 bodies. We were told there were 3. Command closed the file, said the 3rd operative had been compromised and eliminated." He exhaled sharply. "We mourned you, officially off the record in a bar in Rota, Spain. We toasted the ghost." "That was kind of you." "How?" The single word carried the weight of years of unanswered questions. "How did you get out of that compound? We had drone footage. The entire East Wing collapsed. We saw it go down." Lucy was quiet for a moment. The garden crickets filled the silence around them. "There was a drainage tunnel," she said finally. "Hadn't been on any of the architectural maps because it was built illegally during the original construction. I found it during my 2nd week inside the compound, memorized it, stored it the way you store things you hope you never need." She paused. "I needed it." Daniel stared at her. "You crawled out of a collapsing building through an unmapped drainage tunnel in the dark." "I crawled out of a collapsing building through an unmapped drainage tunnel in the dark," she confirmed, "with a dislocated shoulder and someone else's blood on my hands. Then I walked 4 miles to the secondary extraction point that nobody else knew existed because I had established it independently 3 weeks before the operation, against protocol, because I had a feeling the primary would be compromised." "It was compromised." "I know. I found out who compromised it. That's why Command closed the file." The silence between them shifted from disbelief to something heavier, more careful. Daniel set his untouched glass on the porch railing. "Your father has no idea who you are." It wasn't a question. Lucy looked through the window at the warm, lit dining room where Harold Carter was holding court, laughing again, his world perfectly intact and perfectly small. "He knows exactly who I am," she said quietly. "He simply decided it doesn't count." She went back inside. She sat at the table, and she listened to her father continue his performance. The stories of his own career, the accolades, the way he shaped the word excellence like it was a monument he had built with his bare hands. She watched her mother smile the careful smile of a woman who had spent decades managing the weather inside a marriage. She watched her aunt refill her wine glass for the 4th time. And she felt something she hadn't felt in 14 months of civilian life. Not anger, not sadness, but a clean, quiet clarity. The same clarity that had kept her alive on that mountainside in Syria. The same clarity that had carried her through the drainage tunnel in Morocco while the building collapsed around her. She was not her father's disappointment. She was the woman that elite soldiers trembled at the sight of. Those 2 things could exist simultaneously, and only one of them was true. When Harold Carter finally paused his performance long enough to notice the look on Daniel Reeves' face, the way the commander had been watching Lucy with an expression that didn't belong at a dinner party, he frowned. "Daniel," he said, with the light authority of a man who assumed he controlled every room, "you've gone quiet. Something wrong." Daniel looked at Harold Carter for a long moment. Then he looked at Lucy. She gave the smallest shake of her head, almost imperceptible. A field signal, stand down. He almost obeyed it. Almost. "General Carter," Daniel said slowly, setting both hands flat on the table. "With respect, do you know what your daughter did for this country?" Harold blinked. "She's been finding hers." "She ran covert intelligence operations in active war zones for 6 years, Daniel said, his voice quiet but carrying the absolute authority of a man who had never needed to raise it. "She was embedded with SEAL teams in Morocco, Syria, Pakistan, and at least 2 other theaters I'm not cleared to name at a dinner table." She survived situations that killed trained operators. She walked out of a collapsing building in Casablanca with a dislocated shoulder and still made it to extraction. He paused. We toasted her, sir, in a bar in Spain. Grown men who have seen everything this world can throw at a person. We raised our glasses and we mourned her because we believed someone with her capability was gone. The dining room had gone completely silent. Harold Carter's face moved through several expressions in quick succession. Confusion, doubt, the beginning of something that might eventually become understanding, but hadn't arrived there yet. He turned to Lucy. She met his eyes and she didn't flinch, and she didn't perform, and she didn't explain. She simply looked at him the way she had looked at every dark room she had ever been required to walk into, with absolute, exhausted steadiness. Lucy, he said. Her name, for the first time in as long as she could remember, sounded uncertain in his mouth, like he was learning how to say it correctly. I'm not a disappointment, Dad, she said. I'm the reason 3 of Commander Reeves' men came home from Morocco alive. I'm just not allowed to say so at ceremonies. She picked up her wine glass. But you asked. She left before dessert. Not dramatically, no door slamming, no final speech. She simply said her goodnights, collected her coat from the hall closet, and walked to her car in the cool evening air. The gravel crunched beneath her feet the same way it had when she was 7 years old, sneaking out to look at stars her father had never had time to show her. Daniel found her at her car. He's going to call you, he said. I know. Will you answer? Lucy considered this. The night air was cold and clean and honest, the kind of honesty she had always preferred to the warm, complicated air of that dining room. Probably, she said. Eventually. She unlocked her car. He's still my father, that counts for something. I just stopped letting it count for everything. She got in. She drove away. In the rearview mirror, the lights of her father's house grew small and then disappeared around a bend in the road. And Lucy Carter, ghost actual, call sign widow, the woman that elite soldiers trembled to recognize, drove through the dark with both hands steady on the wheel and the quiet, unshakable knowledge of exactly who she was. She had survived worse than disappointment. She had survived everything. Speech balloon, did Lucy's story move you? Drop a comment below. Should she forgive her father, or has he simply run out of chances? Like this story if you believe that the quietest people in the room often carry the heaviest histories. Subscribe and hit the bell. New stories of strength, sacrifice, and the truth that silence sometimes holds drop every week. Outbox Trey, share this with someone who has ever been underestimated by the person who should have believed in them most. Because some people don't announce their worth. They simply outlast every room that doubted them.